Hey everybody. Today we're building what I would think just might be the loneliest piece of furniture ever made. A single dining chair. So why am I only building one dining chair? And how do I know it doesn't actually enjoy being single? Being single doesn't necessarily mean lonely. Well, I'm building one dining chair because Chris at Four Eyes and I are working on our next set of furniture plans. And it's going to be a dining chair and dining table, but more on that in a bit. And you're right, I don't know if this chair is lonely. As far as I know, chairs don't feel loneliness. Actually, as far as I know, they don't feel anything, except maybe your sweet buns on their seat. But just to be safe, I'm building a second one. I'd hate to find out down the line that chairs actually do feel loneliness, and I'm the reason this particular chair is. Also, I wanted to make two chairs to show some of the different options if you want to build this chair yourself. Again, more on that in a bit. So let's talk about this design for a minute. Chris and I have been making a conscious effort, particularly with the furniture that is meant to become a set of plans, to design them with a bit more mass appeal, I guess would be the best term. We tend to usually design stuff that maybe isn't really for everyone, but it's kind of quirky or unique or has an interesting feature or vibe to it. And we did that with some of our early pieces that we designed for our courses. So now we're kind of trying to balance it all out with some designs that are maybe a bit more suited to live in a lot of homes instead of just some homes. And with maybe slightly more simple designs, we wouldn't necessarily call these projects easy or beginner projects by any means, but we're also trying to kind of fill the gap with some pieces that are maybe a bit more approachable for woodworkers of varying skill levels, maybe kind of in that in between from beginner projects to the more advanced projects. But I like the term approachable, kind of gets the point across. So this chair looks pretty standard at first glance. I'm not blazing any design trails with this one, but at the same time, when you look closer, we've got nicely shaped front legs, a understated lean on the back legs that flows up nicely to a slightly curved and hand-carved seat back. I guess it just has plenty of little things that'll show people that it is indeed handmade and not just a chair that you bought from the chair store. So I'm making this first one out of maple that I had on hand already. A chair like this is maybe a little unique because it's basically made up of a bunch of relatively small parts. Up to this point, I've just been taking larger pieces of wood and breaking them down into smaller pieces, and now I'm finally starting to give them some actual shape. With other furniture like cabinets and tables, they're usually larger parts, maybe panels or doors or tabletops, that require significant amounts of material. But with a chair, I'm always surprised by how little material it actually needs. And I'm usually pretty good about buying pretty close to the right amount of lumber for any given project that I'm building. But for some reason, when I built this round coffee table for my wife last year, I over-ordered from Woodworker Source by such an obscene amount that I've been using the same exact batch of wood for months now. And I keep thinking to myself, I'm going to use it up on the next project, but I seem to always have at least a little bit left over. Kind of feels like Woodworker Source sent me a magical, never-ending supply of maple, which would be pretty nice if that were true. Also, like I mentioned a minute ago, it takes very little lumber to build only one dining chair, so I'm honestly not really doing much to chip away at my supply, but once I was starting to turn my chunks into more chair-looking chunks, I realized how little there actually was. And if you think about it, a chair like this is really mostly air, so it doesn't take much to build one. But again, who the hell is only building one, so I guess it's all relative. Alright, you've probably noticed in a few of the shots so far in this video that I've been using templates to build this piece. And in some ways that might be a little surprising, given that the chair is mostly straight-ish lines and rectangular-ish parts. But if you'll allow me to get up on my soapbox for a minute, I want to scream it to the world how much I love using templates. Even when it isn't a super complex part, like these front legs, a template just gives you a perfect roadmap for where you need to go. And making and shaping a template is a lot easier than making and shaping the real part. I often cut templates on my CNC machine, which is really nice if you have one, but what if you don't? Well, I wanted to show a couple things with this build in particular when it comes to making and using templates. First thing is, even when making a piece that doesn't absolutely require templates, you could definitely make this chair without them. They're just nice to have. Being able to reference a full-size piece to know exactly what you're building is just a nice thing to have. So I'll often make templates even just as a reference piece or an easy way to lay out parts on a board, stuff like that, even if I don't plan to use them for the actual final shaping. And the second thing is that making templates isn't actually that hard, even without a CNC machine. With any of our plans that use templates, we always offer the option to buy the physical templates from us, or you can download the files and cut them yourself if you have a CNC machine or if you know someone with a CNC machine. But with this one, we really wanted to show how easy it is to make templates by hand. So that's exactly what I did with these. Okay, I'll be honest, this particular video has ended up being one of the trickier videos to make. I always try to keep it interesting, both with the actual piece of furniture I'm making and also how I put the video together. And depending on how interesting the actual piece was to make, it kind of dictates how much effort I have to put into the editing process to make the actual video interesting as well. So if I have a piece with a lot of interesting techniques and materials and all that stuff, the video honestly kind of guides itself, and it's almost like I have to worry less about the actual video. But then when I have a less interesting process of making a piece, the video requires a lot more time and effort to make this interesting. It's an inverse relationship, and I'll let you guess which category this chair falls into. So as I continually scrub through the footage I have as I edit and figure out what I'm going to talk about for this video, even I've been getting kind of confused about what part of the build I'm looking at. There's only so many different shots I can show of me cutting rectangular shaped chunks of wood, which is worrying because now I have to rely on what I'm talking about right now to make the video and the process interesting. I assume it'll make sense in a minute, but now you can kind of understand the conundrum I'm talking about when it comes to making the video. Okay, good news. We're officially at the point where all of the ambiguous rectangular chunks of wood that I've been cutting up are finally going to start looking like a chair, which is always an exciting part of any build. When you go from parts to assembly, it kind of just starts to feel real. At least that's the feeling I get. And one of the last things we're doing before that is cutting this joint that attaches the seat apron to the tall rear leg. I always want to call a joint like this a half lap joint, though I know technically a half lap means that both sides of the joint have some material removed to kind of create a interlocking connection. Though with this version, I'm basically cutting a dado through the rear leg, and the apron piece will seat completely into that dado. So technically it's not a lap joint, it's just a dado joint, but I would say if you want to call it a lap joint, go for it. I can't imagine anyone that comes over and sits on your dining chair is going to question you, and I think everyone's going to be super impressed when you tell them you used lap joints and not just some regular old dado joint. So it'll be our little secret. And look, there you go. I told you all these silly little parts were going to start to look like a chair soon. And now that it looks like a chair, let's take it all apart. At least we got a little glimpse into what it's going to look like. One of the things about woodworking, or I guess you could say this about making really anything by hand is that you always have to think at least a few steps ahead, and sometimes you almost have to start from the end and work your way back to make sure you're doing everything in the correct order. This chair in particular had quite a few things that made the order of operations, somewhat critical. So before we start actually gluing parts together, we need to take care of some of those things. I don't know if this is true, but my guess is that one of the more valuable parts about following a build plan or using one of our courses is having that roadmap already laid out for you. I'm sure there are quite a few people that can basically reverse engineer a furniture design and understand how it's made, but one of the trickier things is figuring out the exact order in which you need to do things so that you can do it efficiently and successfully. This chair has a lot of different edge details. Some can be done after assembly, some need to be done before assembly, some I did partially before and then finished them after. Some of them I totally forgot, then wasn't able to do because they needed to be done before the glue up. If only there had been some sort of plan that I could have followed. Anyway, we have our first glue up done, which means we've started some of the edge details. And now we essentially have two sides of the chair and we can start working on everything that goes in between. When I say everything in between, I mean these three parts. And this one is actually already done. So it's really just these two. And this one is pretty straightforward. It's really just another rectangle. Though to be fair, I don't want to sell it short. It does have this slight curve on the top of it. But the real fun is in the backrest. The idea for this was to match the curve on the upper part of the back legs. It's pretty subtle, but it's one of those things that gives the chair a little more visual interest and hopefully makes the chair a bit more comfortable, as the shape will contour to a person's back a little better than just a flat piece would. Chairs are kind of tricky pieces of furniture to make. Just like with anything else, they need to look good and obviously function properly. You need to be able to sit on them. But then on top of that, they also have to fit a human body. And actually, they need to be able to fit a bunch of different human bodies. And honestly, now that I'm thinking about it, maybe not even just human bodies. You really never know who or what might show up for dinner. But the point is, it can be difficult to get it right for everybody across the board. So hopefully little things like a slightly curved backrest will help with the universality of user accommodation. That's actually the title of my next academic research paper. All right, so we have two side assemblies for the chair, and now we have the three parts that go in between. So we can just slap it all together, right? Are you out of your mind? Of course we can't. There are so many things we have to do before that. Okay, to be fair, that might be a little dramatic, but we do still need to cut joinery, do a bit of trimming, some sanding, and of course, more edge details. I just felt like we needed a little tension. This build has honestly been going pretty smoothly for a YouTube video. I guess that's kind of the nature of this sort of project. It's a straightforward design, and I'm building it for a set of plans. So it would be bad if I was making a ton of mistakes along the way. But then I'm also trying to make an entertaining YouTube video, and it would be bad if everything went super smoothly. Do you see the predicament I'm in? In a lot of my build videos, I'm often trying new things or taking on projects that might push my knowledge and skill. I actually talk about that idea fairly often, and it's really one of my favorite parts about designing and making things. And when doing stuff like that, it's inevitable that you're gonna make mistakes and things are gonna go wrong. But when I do a project like this chair, and my main focus is teaching people how to do it, it means that keeping it in my wheelhouse is literally the best thing I can do. So this is probably as good a time as ever to tell you about the new plans/courses we are releasing soon. I made this chair and Chris made a dining table. We didn't really want to specifically design a dining set, but these two can definitely work as a set or not, totally up to you. Either way, we're working on the plans now and we'll hopefully have them ready pretty soon. So for now, sign up to our email list. We're definitely going to do some sort of pre-sale discount. So getting on that list will ensure you get the best price possible once it's all ready to go. All right, so here we are with an assembled chair. I usually like to get ahead of myself. Once I have a piece glued up or assembled, or this first kind of glimpse of the piece being finished, in my head, all I can think is that I'm on the final stretch and the end is in sight. And a lot of the time, I'm completely wrong. With other pieces of furniture, I'll get to the first big assembly like a cabinet or something, feel like I'm nearing the end, only to realize I still have literally everything else to do on the piece. But this time I was a little more justified in getting ahead of myself, and the end actually was in sight. I mean, it's pretty chair looking right now, isn't it? So remember all of those half-finished edge details from earlier? It was finally time to get the rest of those taken care of. I also added some corner braces for a little extra bracing in the corners. You never know who might be sitting, standing, dancing on this thing in the future, so a little extra strength never hurts. These will also be a nice mounting point for the seat in a couple minutes. And finally, maybe the most risky choice I made through this entire build, and a risk that definitely can be avoided, is carving a little dish in the backrest. I say this is risky because the chair is already glued up, so if I mess this up now, I'll be in a bit of a pickle, I suppose. And I say it's a risk easily avoided because I could have easily carved this before gluing the chair together. And remember how I said I didn't make any mistakes on this build? Just kidding. A little more forced drama for the video. The carving came out pretty good, and the last thing I needed to do was make the seat. One of the things we pride ourselves in with our online plans / courses, which, by the way, do you prefer we call them plans or courses, or does it matter? We've always kind of gone back and forth between the two terms and still have yet to really nail down what we call them. And if you've watched all the way to this point in the video, feel like I can trust you and you'll give me a real answer. So tell me what you think, plans or courses. Also, like and subscribe if you haven't already. Anyway, one of the things we pride ourselves in with our online plans courses is that we try to offer some options for people whenever it makes sense in the build. Whether it's just changing simple dimensions or small things like edge details or big stuff like what kind of seat you want to make, we try to show how these things can be achieved. I decided to once again try my hand at some quasi upholstery. I'm by no means an expert. I wouldn't even say I really know what I'm doing, but I'm usually able to get a halfway decent outcome when doing simple upholstery projects like this one. And when it comes to options, if you don't want to go with this version, we'll show you a version with a wooden seat as well. So back to the original question, why would you build a single dining chair? And I guess the answer is you wouldn't. Unless your motivation is making a YouTube video or something, but why would you do that? And I guess the best custom option you have when making this chair is that you can make as many as you want. So if you have the determination, the possibilities are actually endless. And now that I say that, I remember that at the beginning of the video, I said I was going to build 2. So I better get started on that second one. And once I release these plans, you can get started on yours. But can you just guarantee for me that you won't only build one? We all know chairs don't have feelings. That's a ridiculous concept and doesn't make any sense. And people might think you're kind of nuts if you believe anything like that. But I guess we can't totally rule out that possibility. So just in case, make a couple or 3 and be sure that your dining chairs are always happy.